Good afternoon, Robert Scribbler. It is May 1st, 2019. Thank you for joining me for another climate change and clean energy video blog. This segment being another episode of our subsection Extreme Clean, where I talk about how I am working to get my individual carbon emissions to net zero and then net negative. Now, for this segment, I am going to talk about how I used Rideshare to purchase a Tesla Model 3, and I'm going to provide you some tips on how you can do that. But before I do, I'd like to share with you some pictures of my new Tesla Model 3 charging at a solar charging station at the top of a garage in the local Gaithersburg area. Now, ultimately, it is my goal to source all of the energy for this electric vehicle from clean energy sources like wind and solar. But right now, I am sourcing the energy from clean energy sources when I can get it, like at this solar charging garage, but also from the Maryland grid. Now, because the Maryland grid is a mixed grid that includes energy sources like nuclear, wind, solar, natural gas, and coal, the vehicle does have some carbon emissions in use, but it's far less than a comparable internal combustion engine vehicle, such that individually I can reduce my footprint, my carbon footprint just for individual use by about 2 tons per year, and through rideshare by between 4 and 6 tons per year. Now, of course, that emissions reduction increases dramatically if I can consistently link the vehicle to solar. And ultimately, I'd like to have solar panels for my home so I can just charge the vehicle directly from solar energy while at my house. So those are all future projects. What I'm going to talk about now is how I got to the present state where right now I am ride sharing a clean energy vehicle in order to both support the clean energy economy, which is right now made up of a triad of batteries, which include battery electric vehicles, wind and solar energy primarily, and all of which benefit from a positive learning curve, which means that the more you produce, the less they cost and the more efficient they become. So as clean energy gets produced on a mass scale, it tends to be more accessible to people like you and me, and it tends to become more efficient and more effective at collecting and distributing energy from the sun and the wind and other natural sources. So getting to the nitty-gritty of this post, how did I, being a relatively certainly not rich writer, how did I get to afford a Tesla Model 3? Now, what I did was, I'm gonna get out of this slideshow here for a second as I explain. So what I did was I leveraged a rideshare application called Uber. And I decided to set aside about 20 to 30, maybe some more hours a week out of my regular schedule to Uber in order to make money to afford a Tesla Model 3. Now, where I live, I'm in the Washington, D.C. area, and so that's a little bit more optimal for rideshare. The rideshare income rates here are a bit higher just because there's a lot of demand for rideshare and ride services. So on average, in the DC area, Uber drivers can make a little bit less than $20 an hour. Now, I know that might not sound like a lot to many of you, but for me as a writer, that's a pretty substantial income, particularly for a part-time job, more than, say, for example, waiting tables. And in addition, it had the added benefit of me being in contact with the public so that I could continue to talk about climate change if the writers were open to talking about climate change. and I could continue to talk about clean energy and the need for clean energy. And if I ever did achieve enough income to purchase a Tesla, which I have, then I could share that Tesla or that electric vehicle and show riders who might be a little bit skeptical about the capabilities of an electric vehicle how amazing an electric vehicle really is. So what I did was I set aside this time. I basically ended up working extra in total between the writing and the Ubering, probably about 50 or 60 hours a week or more. Unfortunately, I had to scale back my writing on the issue of climate change because despite some climate change denier memes, people who work in the climate change field or communicate on the issue of climate change usually aren't actually rich. So I know that's a shock to some of you, but yeah, my climate blogging escapades have netted me well less than minimum wage in the hours that I've spent. Not that it hasn't been rewarding. In fact, it has absolutely been very rewarding fighting to spread the message about the need to respond to climate change and to save the Earth environment from another mass extinction, a hothouse extinction, and in particular to save our human societies, which include people like me and you and our family members and the people we love, from the heavy impact and the ratcheting impact of a warming world, which we are now starting to feel. So this is my fight as an individual, my action, in a way, my climate policy. This is my Paris Climate Agreement. This is my Green New Deal. And though those policies are also very important to support on a political level, on a political scale, in my opinion, at this point, it's game time. It's time for action on climate change. And that means as individuals, we really got to step it up. We got to do what we can to fight climate change. And 20 to 30 extra hours of work a week for the future of our world, what is worth it to me. So that's what I did. And over the course of about 6 months, I accumulated enough capital to purchase, in my opinion, what is a modern marvel of technology, a marvel of clean tech, which is both efficient and quiet, and like driving for a Serenity reference, a leaf on the wind. This vehicle is not your typical internal combustion engine vehicle. It's like driving a stealth spacecraft on the road that helps to promote clean energy, and it really has been a joy to drive. I really feel the difference. It's like a lurch whenever you step back into an internal combustion engine vehicle and you have to deal with that awful engine noise and the additional jostling that you feel because you don't have that nice heavy weight in the bottom, that skateboard in the bottom. And I find that many of the people that I drive, they compliment me, even if they don't know that. Sometimes they don't even realize that they're an electric vehicle, and I have to tell them later. They compliment me on the smoothness of my driving, and they say that I'm an excellent driver. So it's actually a real selling point if you happen to be an Uber or a Lyft driver. It really does enable you to be a more effective and a safer driver overall. But that's not the main focus for me. The main focus for me is confronting climate change. Now, I'm going to teach you a little trick that I think will help some of you if you want to use Uber or Rideshare to gain enough capital to purchase an advanced clean energy vehicle like the Tesla Model 3. And that particular trick is the Uber application feature called destination trips. And what destination trips allow you to do is to set a waypoint at any particular location, and as you drive to that location, to pick up riders and drop them off as you drive to that location. Now, at first blush, this might not sound like some kind of revolutionary feature, but if you think about it, if you live a decent distance away from your workplace, and many of us do. If I look at the DC area, the area is a massive sprawl. And there are people I know that commute all the way from Harper's Ferry, and they drive toward Frederick, and then they come down 270 and drive into DC for like a very long commute, sometimes in excess of 2 hours, right? So, and even if you're living in my region, which is Gaithersburg, and commuting into DC, the distance of travel is still about 25 miles. So that's a pretty significant commute, and I know a number of people who do it. If you set the waypoint, say for example, if you're living in my area in DC and I'm sorry, in Gaithersburg, and you're commuting into DC, you can pick up rides all the way along the path into DC. Now, full disclosure, this will increase your commute time probably by at least 50% because you have to drive a little bit off your path, kind of like the way a bus works, to go pick up your rider and then drop them off and then get back to your route of travel. So you need to plan for that. But one additional feature of this destination trips feature in the Uber app is that you can set a time range in which you want to arrive at your destination. So the shorter the time range, the less trips you'll tend to get. The longer the time range, the more. So it can allow you to optimize for trips versus time. Now, how can this help you to get a Tesla Model 3? Well, if you ride share to and from work, and if you pick up about 2 to 3 rides per commute, both in and out, you end up making approximately an additional $30 to $40 a day, and that's a conservative estimate. Rideshare during rush hour is among the most lucrative times. They have what they call surge pricing, which will up the cost of fares for the rider because there's a high demand for drivers. And there's also other incentives that Uber drivers receive and Lyft drivers receive while they are picking up rides during these high demand times. So $30 to $40 a day doesn't sound like much, but if you multiply that by 5, if you're driving to and from work 5 days a week, that's $150 extra per week to up to $200 extra per week. And my payment on a $40,000 Tesla Model 3 is in the range of about $600 a month. Now that's after down payments and everything. But you can see how you can use the app to get very close to the extra cost of the vehicle. And in addition, you are saving gas money because the cost of charging is about 1/4 to 1/3 what you would tend to pay for gas. And you're also saving on maintenance because the cost of an oil change is about $50 a shot. And the Model 3 itself doesn't need an oil change. It does have a fluid change that you receive once every 60,000 miles, but comparing that to an oil change that would have to occur every 3,000 miles, that's really a big difference, and you end up saving a lot of money even on that just single basic maintenance item. So once you start to add in the cost savings inherent to operating an electric vehicle, as well as the added revenue that you're getting from ride sharing to and from work, then you've basically managed to get a Model 3 for a little bit extra time spent on your commute, and as well as for the fuel savings and the maintenance cost savings. Now, that's not including government incentives. In Maryland, we get a $3,000 government incentive for the purchase of an electric vehicle. And my apologies. And the Model 3 right now is still eligible for the $3,750 federal tax credit. So just one way, if you're like me and you don't make a huge amount of money, to produce that extra push to get the revenues for a clean energy vehicle. And I can say that for me, it's been totally worth it. I've really enjoyed it. And one of the really fun things, one of the most fun things about driving the Tesla Model 3 is sharing it. I have had so much fun sharing it with people, showing them how the vehicle detects other vehicles next to it and how it can do the autopilot when you're on the highway, and all the various things that it can do that are really kind of fun and cool in a technological sense, as well as just the pleasantness of the overall drive feel of the clean energy vehicle. So hopefully this will be helpful to you. If you do decide to use Rideshare to gain a clean energy vehicle, consider using my Uber referral code, which I'll be putting in the notes for this video blog. And if you decide to get a Tesla Model 3 as opposed to another electric vehicle, I'm also going to be posting a link which will allow you to get up to 5,000 supercharger miles for free if you use my referral code for that as well. So clean energy, kudos to all of you. I really hope that we get this clean energy transition moving along. Climate change is unfortunately looking worse and worse, but on the positive side, the clean energy technology that will enable us to live more lightly on the earth and to gain the benefits of a technological society with a far less impactful and harmful footprint is starting to become more and more available. And right now, those of us who are early adopters, who wish to be street fighters for climate change, can really get into the fight now due to this enablement. The clean energy technology is becoming more accessible, and though it might not be accessible for all of us, there are strategies that we can use to kind of up our game and punch us up to the level where we can access these new clean energy systems and help to fight climate change. Thank you for joining me, and I'll be chatting with you soon.